meeting take two. I did like that. All right, everyone, we apologize. We were hacked on our initial meeting. We brought forth all of the members of the meeting that we're on. I'm apologizing in advance to the public, but unforeseen matters. One thing is to text Dennis O'Brien the information. Eric, if you can, because I know he was on. We had a presentation from Bill Warner, and he was the last good part of our presentation. And so what we're going to do is we're going to move on to Jay is giving us a report from Public Works for our budget meeting. Eric, I had your email open, but Jay, if you can go forward and give us your report, we can get you off so you can get some sleep. Unmute. Jay, unmute.
There we go.
There we go.
All right. Thank you, everybody. First of all, I'd like to start with, we're talking about capital roads and tar combined, correct? That's
Correct.
what we're talking about right now. All right. So Eric and I were in discussions about, obviously our startup money in the springtime and what the town would be a good, as far as the town having a good pot of money to start the construction season, and that being the tar account, because it comes in a couple different times a year, sometime typically around January or August, depending, plus minus. So, and that's usually around $93,000 and change. So, give it $180,000 per year from the state for tar. So the question is what is a good amount of money that we could start with? And my thought was around $250,000 to $300,000. If there was that kind of money every year, not only would you have startup money in the tar account, and this is, I know we don't have that right now, but think about it for the future and how we can work towards having a consistent startup money, because it's always better if we can get going early and obviously have the funds to do that prior to July 1. So
Jay, haven't we had that the last couple of years?
Yes and no. We've had it. I don't know if we've had that amount of money in there. 2 years ago, we had a good pot. Last year, we used up quite a bit. And of course, we had some added expenses where we kind of depleted those funds. But getting back to the, $250,000, $300,000 in that account, not only does it allow you to have startup money, but you have some emergency funds in case a storm pops up or something. You got a little something to work with. But that being said, the budget that I'm presenting tonight for the roads is thinking your heads is a combination of tar and road monies combined. And Eric, just a quick question: the latest rundown I gave you just before I left this afternoon, did that get emailed out, or just should talk about that?
Eric?
Well, maybe he'll be back on. This. I sent him my spreadsheet that I used. It's not the one that. I don't know if he had that, if he sent that to you guys. But anyway, back up a little bit. I'm gonna see if I can share my screen. First, we'll talk about the chip seal roads for this year, the improvements. See if I can
You're
share
not going to
my,
be able to share your screen because you're not the host.
oh,
I
okay.
just enabled share screening for Jay, so you should be able to share.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
so. All right. Oh, here we go. That's what I want to, you guys see that?
Mhm.
No,
Yes.
Yes,
this one that's moving, you're seeing?
Yeah,
It's a
Okay.
single.
All right, how's that?
It's good.
perfect.
All right. So, talking about this year's roads, for, chip seal preservation. So we have Wheeling Road, Pine Ridge, Shadblow, Dogwood, Woodfern, Hutchinson, Times Farm, Old Coventry. Now I have the single chip in blue and in red, the, double chip. So Pine Ridge and Shadblow, those are in pretty rough condition. As far as the quality of the pavement, but they're still primarily together, we'll say. So we could do a double chip on that and preserve it for a pretty good amount of time. So I went back, originally I had this through Gorman. As you can see, Gorman was the contractor that I reached out to in the beginning to get a quote on this for budgetary numbers. So originally I had them price it out with them doing the sweeping and the traffic control. And that originally came in at about $221,000. And I reached back out to them just because money is the way it is these days. Take out the traffic control. If we do the traffic control and we do the sweeping, we'll save approximately $22,000. So he came back with a new price at $152,094 for chip seal. All right. Now, if I scroll on further down, you see the map of the town here. So I kind of mapped this out as where we are today. And in red, the small, like these are around the lake and some of Bunker Hill, what we did last year, Bear Swamp, this portion along Hill, and these other roads. Some of these other roads have been either chip sealed, preserved in the past 3 years, or touched within the past 5-7 years, and they're fairly good shape. And our goal is to kind of go around the town. We started in this area and then trying to make it so we're addressing our bad roads as well as our good roads at the same time. And so we're going to come from this side of town. This is where we're proposing this year, these roads here. Okay, Hutchinson, Times Farm, Old Coventry. So these roads here. And that's, you'll see on the list. All right. This here, green, this is where we're talking about doing drainage work this year. And also that trip grant, Hendy, the last section along Hill, and then Skinner. All right, and this section of Skinner right now is a little bit undecided what we're going to do there. Depends on what the funding comes in. If we get the trip grant, how we're gonna treat this, whether we do a shim and chip on it, or we could shim it and overlay it. So we don't really know exactly what we're doing there, but we do know we gotta do the drainage here first this year. So our plan this year, chip seal, shim and chip, and the drainage here. For 2024, which you really can't see, unfortunately, it doesn't really show up. It's 4.6. This would be next year's plan. And we're looking at Bailey, Aspinall. I forget what that little road is. And Burnap Brook, this area, the last of Shoddy Mill, some roads over here. So you can see by this list. Any questions?
No, how does it all fit into the rest of your budget?
Okay. So now I've got to go back and bring up. Oh. Did I lose the screen sharing?
No,
Okay. Can we see this screen here?
Yep.
All right. So this is my spreadsheet that I use, that I sent Eric. And this was my updated as of today. So let me. All right. So this is my summary page. So paving, patching, and I'll go through the details. Under 93, 250. Crack seal, 210, along with, chip seal and crack sealing. Drainage, 110, 111,000. Pavement markings, 25. Other, 60,500. So for a total of 599,742. So in the paving, from AEN, try to budget for 1,000 ton of asphalt, 95 per ton. That'd be virgin asphalt for shimming. The contractor, 23 days of labor at 42.50 per day, 97,750, and some cold patch that we use throughout the year for any potholes. Chip sealing. Approximately 4 miles of the preservation and chip seal, $170,000. Crack seal, it's at $22 a gallon plus minus. Try to budget about $40,000 for crack seal. Drainage. So this is the drainage area that we would like to complete on Hendy, Long Hill, Skinner. We have approximately 26 catch basins. Some of them would be new, some of them are rebuilds. But 26 in total, $1,500 a piece. Materials, 39,000. Drainage pipe, 2,500 feet at approximately 2090 per foot, 52,000. Some of that pipe's 15 inch, some's 18 inch. There's a couple pieces of 24 inch, and there's some 12 inch in there too. So go ahead. Somebody have a question? No. The drainage flares, those are the pieces at the end of the pipe. 6 of those, approximately 2,000. 8 assorted adapters going from RCP to ADS pipe, concrete to plastic. 2640. 4 rolls of filter fabric, 2352. And then your catch basin cleaning. Some of these areas, the reason for the filter fabric, we've got some wet areas along the way that we're going to use some perforated pipe to absorb, take up some of this groundwater that's wreaking havoc on some of the edges of the roads in the areas where we got some bad icing and poor drainage. So traffic control, basically that's the center line or pavement markings. Like to budget 25,000 for that. Long Hill, Shoddy, the roads that we've had completed that we weren't able to, and then some other roads that we weren't able to finish the last time. Center line striping, some sideline striping, stop bars, sharrows, got a couple areas that we need to mark in the parking lot too, a couple of outliers to finish up. And the last part of this is the other our WeatherWorks reporting, that annual service contract at $1,700. Approximately $500 500 ton of miscellaneous roadbed material, stone process loam at $20,000, grass seed 1,800, and flex beam. Flex beam, I measured out that section on because we haven't done that in a year or two. Like to get back on that program, and I measured the section on Long Hill from Route 6 to the intersection of Bear Swamp, and there's 1,300 feet of the old wood rail. And so to replace that, it's $29 a foot. It's $37,000. So in total, back to the summary, I got just call it $600,000.
And Eric, how does this compare to what you presented to us before?
It's quite a bit more than what I presented to you before. Jay gave me this afternoon, so that's not included in the documentation I gave you earlier, last week.
What I didn't have prepared the last time is I didn't have all my drainage calculations for doing the drainage work on Hendy. And I had some of it, but I didn't have as much as I had that I put together right now.
Okay,
I've been working over the past week on this stuff, and
okay, but looking at this number, does this encompasses just road work, or does this encompass the things we normally use TAR funds for?
Say that again, Adrian, I'm sorry.
So we have TAR funds of 190,000, right, give or take?
Correct.
Is this encompassing the things that we would normally use the TAR funds for?
Yes, TAR funds are included. I'm assuming that TAR money is in this,
In your 599,000 that you need.
yes, it wouldn't be 599 plus another 100 and
Okay.
$90,000.
Okay, so Eric asked for 375 plus the 190, we're at 565. We're only off by about 30 grand, give or take.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to point something out to you, Jay, though. You said you weren't sure if you had gotten those funds before. You were at 300,000 basically the last 3 years, in addition to your TAR funds.
No, I know we had the TAR funds.
No, I'm
And-
saying outside of TAR funds, you said you need some funding somewhere around 300,000 to have the money in the spring, right? And I asked you if you had that, and you said you weren't really sure. So I went and looked it up for you and verified in each of the town budgets that are on the town website, and you had that amount of money, give or take, each year. About
No,
300.
Adrian, I don't think that was his point. Jay's point was that normally the goal is to start the paving year, the work year off, which starts around April, with enough money in the bank that you're not waiting till July 1 to be able to do
Right.
significant amounts of work.
Right. I
So
understand.
it's not a question of the total budget. It's just a question of, in years past, we've had the $200,000 to $300,000 for early work, but we overspent last year when we
Yeah.
did the reclaim and repave. Not overspent, but we spent more than we had, so we pulled down the reserve pretty considerably.
Right. But we could, I mean, listen, if the issue is whether or not you can start paving sooner, is that really the issue? You still want to spend the same amount of money this year? You just don't have that funds available to you right now, and that's your concern?
Yeah, it's gonna be a little tough to make sure we get going when we need to get going. You know, there's.
Right. So,
Uh,
so the solution to that, though, is to simply go to the Board of Finance and ask them to take money out of the general fund to get you started, and then agree to a transfer back to the general fund when we get the budget approved. That's why we have a general fund with, several $1 million in it, so that if we need to do something like this, we can. So I would simply put in a request to the Board of Finance, asking them to transfer, what is it you need, 100,000, 150,000 to get going, right? And then you agree in that request that you would then transfer that amount of money back once your budget is approved. Shouldn't be that big a deal.
I believe that takes a town meeting, because that would be over the 0.5% of the budget.
So we have a town meeting. I mean, the Board of Finance can make that decision, but I guess I'm pointing out that there is a solution to this. It's not really our decision to be Board of Finance, but if you don't ask them, they can't answer you. If it's that imperative, then we need to do that. If it's not that imperative, then why are we having the conversation? No offense.
I just have to ask an accounting question. Why aren't those expenses just dated July 1st?
Well, we have to pay somebody when we have these things done. If we're getting the work done and we get billed at the end of the month before July 1.
But they're
What's that?
90-day payables, aren't they?
Not all of them.
Jay, let's talk about this
So,
offline.
yeah.
because honestly, you just got to ask the vendor to date it July 1st and it'll fall within your budget. You're going to have your
Yeah.
budget set. It's just honestly, this is Adrian is 100% right. To go to a town meeting to have that answered is just ridiculous. So to me, it's just something that we need to deal with the vendor. You need to deal with the vendor on. The vendor will get paid timely. It's just, you're trying to start 30, 45 days early. That's what you're asking. And it's on a budget for the next fiscal year. You should be able to accomplish this. So without going to a town meeting, it's not like you're overspending your line. You're just trying to do it early because
Right.
that works within your schedule. And I'm in 100% agreement with you, and 95% of the town folk will be in agreement with you. So let's get going. So next issue.
Also, the
Okay.
question is, do we want to make a motion to add, give or take, $34,000 to the road improvement fund request?
Well, if I'm looking at Eric's draft 313, I guess he had 330 in there. Now it's 375.
Yeah, part of that, well, pretty much all of that increase is I didn't have all my drainage numbers together for as far as the materials needed for that Handy Long Hill.
But we're
Skinner.
still 34,000 short.
Yeah,
Take out the line painting and you'll be back down to 10.
What's the future expenditures estimate?
$17 million.
No, Jay, what's the
Yes.
future expenditures? There's a $25,000 line, it's line 25, that's up. What is that for?
Future,
Line 25, right? there.
oh,
Yep.
yeah, that's the,
That's the line
the
painting.
pavement markings. That's the center line striping, stop bars,
But why is it listed under futures? When are you actually looking at paying that? Or doing it?
well, I put it in futures because that's what I was budgeting in my estimating for, well, I didn't estimate, I got
He put everything in futures, Adrian.
yeah, everything is in future right now.
Well, then can I pay it in the future? I mean,
'Cause it's-
it's kind of
it's-
confusing. Yeah, that's all I'm saying.
Well, yeah, it's my spreadsheet. It's the way, because if you go to the traffic control, this is, there it is
Okay.
right there for 20.
This-
If I'm gonna pay it, I'm gonna move it up to approved expenditures
Okay.
or
This is your
pending.
brain. It's like, this is your brain, this is your brain on J, I guess,
I guess so, yeah.
All right. I get, so listen, I'll put a motion on the floor. We can just move past this. I would make a motion to approve, add $34,000 to the road improvement fund request or proposed. That would put us at $409,000.
No, okay, let's go to Jay's. Jay, go to your projection. So you got 599, right?
Yep. 599, 742.
And you're subtracting out and Adrian, I'm guessing from your Board of Finance days, that you're subtracting out the tar money.
Yep, 190 plus 375, you're 34 short.
Okay, so 409, 742 is the line item now. So that's line 305, 911.
Yep, it's 430 on the spreadsheet Eric sent us.
Eric has 375, so you were right. So 34,7, it's 34,742. Unless I'm reading your budget request incorrectly, Eric.
Nope,
No,
we
you're
got-
not.
So you had 375 and we need 409, 742.
409, 742.
I would just round it off to 410 personally.
Sure. Let's make it. Adrian, would you agree to that?
I don't know, I feel real strange about Public Works padding their budget, but I guess I can live with it.
Okay, so does anyone want to second that budget or
I'll
that?
second it.
Okay,
I just have one question. I have one question for Jay.
sure.
Yeah,
The chip seal contractor that you're proposing using this year is the same one you used last year?
we're still working on that. I have other bids too.
Okay, is
You're
my recommendation not to use that contractor because I mean, that chip sealing job on Long Hill and Hendy is probably the worst I've ever seen. The roadway is coming up. We're getting stones everywhere. The dust this summer was pretty much unbearable for a lot of the neighbors. So either we can use wash stone or do something different, but
It
what we
was,
did
it
last
was,
year was not workable for most residents.
What was your comment, Jay? It wasn't what?
it wasn't the contractors. It was, I mean, it's ultimately the contractor is responsible, but it was a fault of the stone. It was a stone where it wasn't washed properly. We weren't the only town that had that problem.
Okay,
But
but
you're-
Jay,
But-
who was on site? Who was on site checking that when it showed up?
the contractor.
And
And
the
I was, but
contractor-
I get a cup of a sieve and
Right.
it meets the specs, but you don't really know what's happening until the stuff is down. And
Yeah, but as soon as they
If
dumped
the-
the first
the-
one, somebody should have said, hey, this isn't what we ordered. No?
the product hasn't failed. It's just not the best that it should be.
Well,
But Jay-
we're still getting, up till last week, we're still getting dust off the roads. And the stone is still, every time you guys plow, the stone is coming up. And I mean, we got piles of stone everywhere. I can't not drive down Hendy Road because my car is kicking it up everywhere. I mean, it's kicking up on the side of my car. And other people are having the same problem. So like, if we're gonna use the same contractor, I would not be in favor of this budget. But
Okay,
we gotta
Okay.
pick somebody else or remedy the situation.
Why,
Okay.
Jay, why wouldn't the contractor reject that load of stone if it, when they dumped the first truck, they should have known? No?
I don't have an answer for that, Adrian.
I'm just saying, when concrete shows up on a job, the first thing we do is test it to make sure it's the right slump, right?
Yeah,
When I delivered stone, if it was washed stone and I showed up with the wrong crap, the contractor would reject it and say, hey, this isn't washed, this has got too much in it. You know?
Yeah, you can't see if it was, how cleanly it was washed is what you're saying, right?
Right.
yeah,
They should have, they wouldn't have noticed that, Jay gets a sample, he may get a 5-gallon bucket, he may get a cup, whatever, right? And they say, this is what we're gonna use. But when it shows up on site, it starts dumping, somebody at that point should have said, hey, we got an issue, and called the plant, whoever you're getting it from, and said, hey, what's with this? This doesn't meet spec. And it's their responsibility, to call your rep or whoever you're dealing with, and they'll drive their butt down there and take a look at it and either agree with you or disagree. But at least you'd be able to say to us, we had the spec checked and it was fine.
I mean, we can see where the plows have scraped a lot of it up. I mean, I think the dirt on the stone has kept it from adhering to the oil. I mean, it's just, there's tons of dirt and dust. I mean, the sides of the roads are just full of stone. And like I asked some of the public works guys if they were going to get a chance to come up and sweep, because I mean, it's just, there's just so much stone on the road. It's unbelievable. So this is not against you. It's just, I don't want to see the same thing happen again. We need to do this as a lessons learned, not to do this, not to have this happen again.
And honestly, that contractor should have been kicking us money back to pay for the sweeping. They took delivery. It's their responsibility,
we will be sweeping again.
but they should be paying for it, Jay. It shouldn't be the townspeople that pay because we got poor product.
Well, I mean, I've been doing this a long time. And unfortunately, with this type of business, with the chip seal, it's the chip loss that we're experiencing right now on some of these roads, like Hendy, for sure, from Pine Ridge up to Long Hill, was a double chip. A double chip will break up a little more stone than usual than on a single chip. You're always going to have a certain percentage of chip loss, no matter what.
Okay.
Was it a little more dusty this year than other years? Yes, it was. Did we have an issue getting the sweeping done as early as we should have done? Yes, we did. We had a problem with their sweepers. They couldn't get contractors to come in on time, limited contractors. And then we had our machine break down on us, and that put us behind the 8 ball as far as how quickly we could get our machine repaired. So what we're seeing out there and what you're seeing out there in my world is it's not something that I want to see, but it's not unusual. And some years are better than others. Well, most years are better than others, but sometimes this happens. It met spec. If that fails and those stones start scraping off and oil is exposed, that company is going to come back in and re-chip seal those roads.
Well, Jay, it's actually doing enough. You look at the road, it's being scraped up by the plows. I mean, there's sections missing right now.
and again, it's, you're seeing some of those sections with a double chip seal and sometimes, and we got to sweep it up. I've been looking at it myself and keeping an eye on it. And there isn't really anything going on that isn't out of the ordinary, other than, yep, there's dusty material and it is damn well going to be better the next time. And if we
Okay.
decide to go to another contractor, that's fine too. It's just, we've had quotes presented and we went with the contractor that had the lesser, bid. They were fine before, and the ones before them were okay too. And we've had problems in the past of other contractors. So it's not a perfect, chip seal is not a perfect system.
Yeah,
Not a perfect system.
I understand that, Jay. I mean,
It's a
being
preservation.
cyclist, I've ridden a lot of roads and I know what chip seal is, but like I said, this road, I ride up it and it's by far worse than any road I've ever seen chip sealed, to be honest. It's bad.
So
So-
Jay, you're basically saying this is a confluence of events, and the actual wearing is acceptable, but maybe the process getting up to there wasn't. Too much dust initially, whatever. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. I mean, I've seen it a lot worse than that.
I'm just worried about quality control, honestly.
Yep.
It is the one frustration I see in municipal contracting across the board, not just public works. There's an attitude that we're just going to take whatever you give us, and it is what it is, and I abhor that attitude. I have an issue with it. So.
I've got them coming out looking at it, and we're watching it. I've got the contractor on it, but it's right now there's nothing
It's still within spec
really
now.
showing.
We've got it.
It's still holding in. So once we get it swept up and we get some good spring rains on it again, and we'll see what happens in the summertime. But if something fails, they're going to be there to fix it. There's no doubt.
There a way to check it closer, Jay? If you get a bucket of that, can you like dump it in some water and see how much residue is left?
Right now?
No. So the next time you
Oh,
do it.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's sieves that we can use to check that stuff. It met state spec, but it definitely was dirtier than before.
Who did we get the stone from?
Becker's. Becker's supplies this area, a lot of towns in this area. So whether they had something going on in their pit, bottom of the pile, I don't know. I don't know. Something happened along the way. We'll keep
Or
an eye
just
on it.
wasn't washed correctly to start with.
Well, remember, Scott, we're deliberately not using the double washed stone that we used in the past. And we're doing it for two reasons. One, the material we're using now is considerably cheaper. And two, the fact that it has a fair number of fines means the road generally ends up smoother than if you use all uniform size, 3/8 of an inch chip seal. So there is some advantage to the crappier material, if you want to put it that way. But it does not go down as nice by any means.
But you're saying it was sort of purposeful then?
I'm saying we deliberately don't use the double washed, all quarry stone material.
Okay.
Which we did in the past.
And we had in the past.
We did with Cormer, not the last 2 years, but that would be like 3 years ago, maybe.
Okay.
Either 3 or 4 years ago, when we used Cormer, we used a fair bit more expensive stone that was double washed, had a lot less fines in it. We had a lot less problems with dust. And we did fog seal afterward, but, the road ended up rougher, even though we fog sealed it, than the road seems to end up with Gorman, the way they do it. with a crappier stone. That's how I would put it.
I did disagree with you, Eric. It's just as rough, and I think the dust actually kept the stone from adhering to the oil.
But it seems like to me,
It's
too.
coming up. I'm not gonna say it again, but it's
It's like
coming.
it wasn't washed at all.
And it just didn't stick to the oil. And it's just every time plows go over it, I mean, when the snowstorm's over, Jay, I'll take you for a ride in my car and I'll show you what I mean.
Well, I travel the road a lot and I see Jeff, I see it. I really
Yeah, I
do.
know. And it's just, I can't even travel Hendy because it's so bad. I can't. even-
Jay, just take a ride with him after you get some sleep. Jeff will feel
Okay.
better. You'll feel better.
No, I just
All
want
right.
to show you my point of view, what motorists are actually dealing with. And I'm not the only one. I've heard it from multiple people. So
Chairman McGuire, do we still have a motion on the floor?
We
Okay.
do. We still have a motion on the floor for 410 on that line item.
I'd ask that we call that motion, please.
Sure. All those in favor for increasing
Oh,
line 305, 911, 59020, road improvement fund to $410,000? Say aye. Aye.
Aye.
I,
Opposed? No. 5-0. Jay, thank you. And
Go home and get some sleep.
yeah.
thank
sorry-
you.
Sleep
Sorry for
tonight.
keeping you so late.
good night.
Good night.
Thanks,
Right.
Jay.
Beep the horn when you go by Jeff's house.
Pick up some dust.
What's your number on 316?
I'm on Woodford.
Don't
We're
tell him
good.
where you are. He's gonna find you.
Yeah.
No, I said to Adrian. All right, good night, guys.
Yeah, get Adrian's house, not mine.
Oh, yeah, you can do whatever you want at my house. I won't hear you. It won't matter. I'm a half mile back.
Okay, so I am so sorry. Is our friends from the community garden still here? Let's get you guys, and if you could,
Yeah.
as quickly as possible, Jeff and group.
We
Okay,
looks like it looks like something is blocking your camera down at the room.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Yeah. Something's
I
blocking.
can see my picture in the upper corner, but
Yeah, but something's blocking the other side. Okay, perfect.
That's good.
okay, what we'd like to do is request funding of $3,000 for 6 garden beds, raised garden beds, 20-foot by 8-foot with our 4x4 16 beds. We had 256 cubic feet of plantable area. With these new beds, we'll have 960 cubic feet. It was a problem in the last 2 years. The first year we got started very late. Second year we were doing the 3 squash, which really weren't producing a lot of produce that we could bring to the food pantries in Hebron and Andover, and that's basically what our aim is, along with getting people in the community involved in the gardening, using it as a teaching tool for Andover elementary students, and so we need $3,000 to purchase the materials which would come out to 72 timbers and all half lapped and rebarred. We sent you you should have had a PowerPoint presentation from us with sketches of the garden beds, the proposed bed layouts, and I had made a model of a garden bed that's up in Eric's office for you people to look at. And the issue is that we really need to get the beds built and installed by May 1st to get the planting season this year. And we've applied for a line item on the budget to do repairs on the shed, which would be another $2,500 to $3,000. And then we've also applied for a Hartford Foundation grant, but those monies will not be available to us until June and July. So we're kind of between a rock and a hard place.
Oh, so
get our
you're
bids up and
actually,
running.
you're asking for emergency funding now. That's what you're
Yes,
asking for.
as soon as possible for the $3,000 for materials.
So
Eric, did you send that PowerPoint over to us?
it's in the packet, Adrian.
Okay.
It's in a meeting packet.
Oh, it's in the big packet. Okay.
Yes.
Hi, this is Grace. Would you like me to share? I do have the PowerPoint on my Chromebook. I can share that PowerPoint with you if it's easier.
No, I was just curious. I didn't see it in the, he sent over some stuff later, so I thought maybe it was one of those. We got a lot of emails for this budget meeting, unfortunately, so.
So Jeff and group, you're really not asking for money for next year's budget. You're asking us to find funding this year in this current fiscal year so that you can build the beds now.
Correct. When we do get that line item in the budget, with the town budget, that would be going into putting a new roof, gutters, and water collection and irrigation into the garden.
So you're asking for two things. You're asking for money now and money next year.
Money next year. Scott, did you get a chance to work out? I know you had to.
Yes, I did. I spoke with the engineer, the
Okay.
site engineer the other day, and he sent me over a plan, the latest plan, and we went over where we would put the beds. And he's going to meet me out there as soon as, and I talked to Jeff, we're all going to meet out there and discuss where we're going to put the beds. It's probably going to be to the southwest of the reserve areas in the trenches, the reserve trenches,
Okay, so
closer to the shed, the new shed that's down there.
Okay, so we're well clear of material stockpile area.
He's not gonna have any problem over there. Yeah.
Okay, so he
And the
can
new-
build.
The new galleys are gonna be put in the old system. The
Yes.
Old trench.
Yep. No, that's
So-
fine. I was more concerned about access because we have material
No,
stockpile
it's
area.
actually works out really well because they'll be able to park at the fire department and just go across
Okay.
that way.
All right, great. Eric, what is the status currently of reserve of the reserve for this year?
So we haven't really had to tap much of anything from contingency. You also have a pool that you could tap from the building maintenance fund. It's not quite applicable to that, but it could be used for that if you so chose. So those are the two pools that I know of that could potentially be used for it this year if you so chose.
And you're looking for 3,000?
Yes.
All right, I make a motion, we take $3,000 out of contingency for the community center garden.
I'll second that.
Anyone else have any additional comments related to this?
Okay, so my only question and comment is for next year, Jeff, Grace, and Amy, I think that's everybody there.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Grace
have an
and I.
idea, you have an idea of what you need for next year as a number and got a good handle on that?
No, we don't. And it'll be substantially less once we get the shed finished off. We've got a little bit of outside work, painting to finish when the weather gets better. A new roof to put on it, gutters and water collection for watering the garden and collecting that rainwater. And Jim Fitting has come up with an irrigation plan, which is included in the $2,500 a line item that we requesting from the town budget. But no, I mean, everything will pretty much be done and in place.
Scott, what's the size of that roof? What's the size of that shed?
It's gonna require, I had it broken down also, submitted for the budget. It's 2 square of Shakewood, NS, architecturals, and storm guards, 2 squares, 3 pieces of drip edge. The roof, total materials for the roof replacement would be, and gutters would be $611.85 that I priced out. And the shed, gutters, and water collection would be approximately $265.36. And then water collection container.
All right, listen,
That all
I
came
will-
out to about $2,500.
I will donate the roof materials and the gutter materials. You can take that off your ask, okay? I'll donate that to you right now.
What a great
Well, thank you,
guy.
Adrian. That's fantastic. And we can get it done before July, I hope.
Yep, you tell me when you need it and I will get it to you.
When,
We're primarily worried about getting the beds in and usable by May 1st.
Yeah, I'll take care of your roof and your gutters. You know, your other stuff, you'll get that out of contingency, so, but I'll take care of the roof and the gutters. Okay, the materials, all right? So,
Thank you.
not a problem.
and just as a side question, what were you using your grant funding that you're applying for?
For odds and ends of the same thing, depending on whether we got the town budget or whether we're even going to get the grant.
Okay. I'm assuming you're still applying for the grant.
Yes.
All right. So our motion on the floor right now is to assist the community gardens with some money out of contingency, and I believe the total was $2,500. Is that accurate?
No, that is not accurate. For the bed
3,000.
materials that I priced out about a month ago, it came to $3,000.
3,000.
The 2,500 is separate for the shed, and Adrian's going to wipe out a lot of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Any other comments?
Yeah, I just have a quick question. Now, I just heard you mention of a grant. Now, if that grant gets approved, do you still need that $3,000 or?
We need the
Yeah,
$3,000.
They're not gonna get the 3,000 until June or July. They need the bed money now,
Right.
May 1st. They want to try to get it. Got to start growing stuff sooner rather than later.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is if they get the grant money and the money from us, you're gonna have a big surplus, correct?
No, there's two separate issues. We're requesting the $3,000 as soon as possible to give us the bed materials to build the beds. And then the other money from the budget or the Hartford grant would go into working on the sheds, on the irrigation system, and water collection from the gutters.
Which you said was 2,500.
Yes.
Yes.
So if you get this grant money, what would that offset?
All of it.
Yeah.
So would you just keep the money or would you propose to give it back to the town in repayment?
If we don't need it, I don't see why it shouldn't be returned to the town.
Okay, but that's just my question. I was just wondering if we're double booking things if you do get the grant.
No, so the 2,500 is for the repair on the shed, the stuff that they were planning on over the course of the year. The 3,000 is to get them going this year so they can actually build permanent
Yep,
beds.
understood. But if they get
That's
the grant,
correct.
but if you get the grant, do you hold on to that for future
Well,
needs?
they may want to do a better irrigation system or a bigger collection barrel, whatever. I think. You know.
Understood. I was just making sure what we're talking about. We're all on the same page.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, we're looking at a total of 72 timbers for the beds. And we would be doing half laps of 24 half laps per bed. So it's a fair amount of labor before we even put the beds in place. And we're going to talk to the fire department or whoever we need to. Grace is going to ask her husband, Dave, about who we need to talk to about having that corner of the fire department parking lot to do the labor on the beams. A flat area, that's paved and easily cleaned up and working at waist height off of horses.
When you say a half lap, what do you mean by that?
we're working with 6x6 timbers, which are about 6.5, 5.5 to 5 5/8 inches. So
Yeah.
you're cutting the width of the timber,
Oh, you're doing
half
an
of it out.
interlocked, an
they-
interlocked corner then. An
So they
interlocking
overlap
corner.
at the corners. That's correct. We're using 12 footers and 8 footers staggered for the sides to make up the 20 feet. And it's all going to be pinned with rebar. This should have been in the packet with my drawings and the model that you can look at, which is up in Eric's office.
Okay, so the question is to the board is, are we willing to sit there and we're gonna vote on this motion for the contingency funding for the beds? So do we have any other questions related to the beds to start with? Okay, so we're gonna call the $3,000 use of money from contingency for the community gardens, and we're gonna sit there and ask it, who's in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No, I think Jeff Murray voted yes, so we voted 5-0 for that.
All right, I'm giving them 1,000 towards what they needed for the roof and all that, so they really need 1,500 then for next year. Is that correct? Would that meet you, Jeff? Or
Well, yes, these were all estimated last summer, so hopefully the prices haven't gone up too badly.
they've actually gone down, so you should be okay.
That would be excellent.
All right, so I'll put a motion on the floor for $1,500 for next year for the community center garden.
Community garden.
Yeah, community garden. Sorry, community garden, Scar. 1,500.
I'll second.
What line item?
Oh God, don't make me try to figure this out.
Pick it.
Do you have anything in there? Do we have anything in the spreadsheet now?
I was almost gonna say you put that under, it doesn't really fit. I mean, there's no commission budget established at this point for the community garden. You could either, I mean, I would have to ask the treasurer what that line item should be. But, you know, I can certainly put it in now and we can figure out what it should be called.
Can we propose 305 916 community center or community garden?
305's transfer line, so I don't think that that's
Put
necessarily
it
appropriate.
under the Recreation Commission and put a new line item under the Recreation Commission. for-
Yeah, let's do that. Fine.
Okay,
Okay, so who made the motion?
I did. Scott seconded. Or Paul seconded. I don't know.
Paula seconded.
All right, Paul seconded. Sorry,
Okay.
Scott. I'll get you next time.
Further questions on the additional funding? Okay. All those in favor of an additional 1,500 for the 2023, 2024 budget? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, 5-0 again. All right, thank you very much, Community Garden Group. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much,
Thank
guys.
you very much, everybody. We greatly appreciate it. How soon do you think we would get this funding so I can place an order to have the materials delivered?
Yeah, the Board of Finance will have to approve it, right, Jeff? Yes.
The contingency funding, work that out with Eric, Jeff, if you would.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Where are we at?
so if you want to stay on budget related stuff directly, you know, the last item, you know, you asked to address, the two things were the, and unfortunately Jay left, but discussion with Public Works related to the sprinkler system versus bringing on an outside person. I did discuss this with Jay. He did want to meet with Scott, but I don't know that he had. But Jay seemed to think that Public Works with their existing personnel could take that on. If you just want somebody to go down there every day and monitor the system. He seemed to think that would be within their capabilities with their existing staffing. But I don't know if that's what Scott wanted to propose.
Scott, do you want to talk about what needs to happen on the irrigation system?
How much do we need a part-time seasonal employee to do work in the town? Are we trying to save that money this year?
Oh, yeah, that got brought up. Eric had pulled that, didn't he?
Oh, it's
I
still in
didn't-
there.
It's still in there. I
Still
did
in there.
not pull it. You had asked for that to be a topic of discussion when Scott was around, because Scott was the one that originally felt that that was appropriate. So that hasn't been touched.
Okay, so Scott, again, are you okay with Public Works handling the irrigation system?
I am, Jeff. And I guess we're gonna save some money for the seasonal employee, but do we need a seasonal employee? I talked to Jay about this too, a month or so ago, and he said that one of the reasons why he couldn't have a seasonal employee is because he needs a truck for them. He would need a truck.
Okay,
But I do believe that he could check it. Somebody in the town needs to start to be responsible for that field. Scott could die tomorrow.
You can't. You got people to take care of, Scott.
yeah, Scott, don't say that. Well, I mean, listen, Scott, I would love to do everything, and yes, we probably do need a seasonal employee to do more of the mowing and the cutting, but we're already, the proposed budget is already above last year's. Well, actually not. Eric, am I reading? Oh, is that your, what was actually the final budget, Eric?
For what?
12.6, and now we're at 12.5. Well, you're going to be higher than that. So we're still slightly under last year's total number.
Yes, correct.
Okay. I would sit there and recommend, Scott, that we push the seasonal employee off for another year, and with the understanding that Public Works is going to take over the management or the safeguarding the irrigation system at the field. That acceptable to you?
Yeah, for this year.
Can I make a suggestion that you keep in that line item $2,500? Because we typically spend roughly that money subbing out and using other town people as road guards. Because it's cheaper during the day to hire somebody inexpensively and keep Public Works, employees doing Public Works stuff. So it doesn't need to be, 22,500, but it should probably be about 2,500, which is what we typically run in that salary line item. That would be my suggestion.
Don't we have traffic control under?
Under Jay's budget that he just gave us?
Yes. But if you look at what he has under traffic control, he's calling the center line striping traffic control.
No, I thought he had a different line item. Okay, all right, so let's go to that line item.
That's 301-111-51522, temp Public Works salary.
Can you repeat that one again, Eric?
Sure, it's 301-111-51522. And that's under the Public Works Department, which is 4399.
Okay, so we had 2,500 in that line item last year.
Correct.
How much of it did you use?
I don't know, but I bet a fair bit of it.
Okay.
I don't have that off the top of my head.
Okay. So then. So I'll sit there and I'll make a motion to reduce line, I mean, do we need that? 301-111-51520 to $2,500. Anyone want to second that? Let's go.
I'll second it.
Okay. Further discussion on lowering that line item? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, 5-0. All right, let's get going. All right, are there any other budget items that we need to sit there and deal with, Eric?
So the last thing would be the decision on whether you do or do not want to go with the town planner. That's the last that I know of decision that you have left out there.
And what line item do you have that under currently?
So there are a bunch of lines that would change. 423, line 423, which is POCD capital. 403, which is legal and professional, would change. And then line 121 for town planner. Those are the three that would be affected by that. They should all be green, so they're easy to see.
They're not easy to find. Okay, so right now you have 6,500 in that line item.
So the town planner line item, which is number 121, I'm talking about the Excel column, 121, is $36,000. And
Is
then,
is that a line that should be green? Is
It
that
is
what you're
green.
saying? It's,
yeah,
okay,
It's row 121.
correct.
yeah.
And then if you go down to row 423, which is POCD capital, a fund, that can be reduced to 0 if we're going on this plan. And then the other line that can be reduced is line 403, legal and professional services. That can be reduced by $5,000. So those three changes net a difference of about $26,000.
Well, you had the adjustment to Jay's too, right?
Yes, that's already, yes. I'm just talking about the adjustments related to hiring a town planner.
So Eric, so just so I get it, I see 36,000 added under 121. Under 402, you have 6,500. That can be changed to 5,000?
No, that was changed. That was decreased from 11,500, which is what Jed requested, down to 6,500. Because you still need a minimum amount of money to pay the town's attorney for legal stuff,
Understood.
but you no longer need the professional component, because that will be handled by the planner.
Okay, so we're looking for an additional increase of $26,000 that's already in this proposed budget that you had sent us on the 13th.
Correct.
Okay. So does anyone want to make a motion on the move forward on a planner? And how many hours is this for, Eric?
This would be for 1 full day a week.
1 full day a week. Okay.
Which is,
Who wants to make a motion on this one?
I'll make a motion to add the town planner.
I'll
One
second,
full day- one full day per week.
I'll second.
Do we need a dollar amount or no?
$26,000. Additional funding. You want to add that, Adrian, to your motion, or you don't care?
Are we putting a specific dollar amount on it? Does Eric have finalized numbers?
That's what he just walked through with us.
I know, but
Yeah.
are those finalized or projected?
We do. So the way this is going to work, so that you know, because this is a little convoluted. We're taking money from 2 line items, so POCD. We're not going to fund the POCD implementation fund. That's going to net us some money, and we're going to reduce what we've been spending for the legal and professional line item for the Planning and Zoning Commission. And then we're gonna spend we're gonna budget $36,000 for the town planner. And we're gonna add an additional 12,000 that we're gonna transfer from the POCD implementation fund that's specifically for the POCD to pay for the planner this year and do the same thing next year. Because we have money in that fund right now. And the goal for the individual for the next 2 years is primarily the plan of conservation and development.
And also work on the affordable housing.
Okay, so,
Yes.
so what's the number that we want to add?
26,000.
All right, so I amend the motion to add $26,000 to the budget for the town planner.
I'll second.
Okay. Further discussion?
Yeah, I just want to say I was on the fence until I heard the projected town planner speak. I think in addition to what Adrian mentioned about the grants, I think when he mentioned addressing the blight, I think we have like about 12 properties in this town that need some serious attention going forward. And if you can help us with that, I'd be supportive of that as well. So I will be voting yes.
Anyone else? Scott?
I'm in favor.
Oh, all right. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, 5-0.
Okay, so since we're on land use, Jed Larson asked us to add more hours to our zoning enforcement office.
Are these just popping up now? I understand why Eric doesn't already have this.
It wasn't in his original budget request.
Well, yes, it was, and he did that publicly.
I don't know what to tell you. I don't think I changed the budget request that he submitted. I also think that you're hiring a town planner. You're going to shift a bunch of that load to the town planner. You could theoretically add 4 hours a week to Jim and get him up to 19 hours, but you can't go more than that because you're going to essentially have to make him a benefits employee if you do that.
Okay, I motion to add 4 hours to Jim Halsey's hours to add all these hours for blight enforcement.
Do we have a number for it, Scott?
Excuse me,
Do we know what the number is?
how many extra hours?
How much dollars are we adding to the line?
So give me about 10 minutes, go on to something else and I'll calculate it and come back to you with a number. I can't do that off the top of my head, but I'll do that if that's something that you want to do.
Well, is it this line 817, 100, 5100? Zoning agent salary.
Correct.
You have it 24,249. 61, and it's 15 hours.
Correct.
And so we're assuming it's 15 hours times 52.
Correct. So it bumps it up to roughly 30,400, something in that ballpark.
So that would move Jim from 780 hours a year to 988. 208 additional hours. $6,500 additional dollars. And so Scott, you're thinking that 6,500 of those additional 4 hours will allow Jim additional time to execute the work that he has on his plate already?
I hope so. I would, Eric's in charge of him, but it'd be nice if he could work one day on explicitly, the blight ordinance stuff until it's completed.
Okay, any other members have any comments related to this request? Eric, before we vote on this, can you sit there and just give us your opinion from the town administrator's position?
I mean, the thought that crosses my mind is that where we need the effort the most? Do I think we need more enforcement of blight? Sure. Do I wish I had more resources to pour into it? Yes. But I think about that in a lot of different areas. This is a position that we've taken from 5 hours, to 10 hours to 15 hours in the last, 2 to 3 years. So we've seen a pretty big increase in that. And we're also hiring somebody 1 full day a week to act as a town planner, which will take some of that responsibility off of his shoulders. So we should have more time to deal with blight anyway. But would an extra 4 hours be helpful? Sure. That's how I would put it.
That's like saying anything about this town. More would be better, but do we have limited resources?
I appreciate the ask, but I would like to see how the town planner plays into this, as we go forward, before we add any more. I think Eric's point is valid, that we have added a lot of time to this, to all these departments, and now we're adding another day, with the town planner. I'd like to see how that plays out budget wise. And, or I'd like to see how that plays out in the office before we talk about adding this to the budget, from a budget point of view, so.
Yeah, and I'm supporting Adrian's viewpoint. I think I'd want to test drive the planner and see what he can do with fresh eyes on the blight
Yeah.
situation.
I mean, in truth, I probably wouldn't use the town planner's time to deal with blight issues. If you
Not
really
work-
want
that's-
to, we can.
That's not what we're hiring him for.
Right.
We're hiring him for specialized things.
Right.
Yeah, but he said he would help address that if needed, so.
Yeah, maybe in his third year.
Well, but let's see what happens. We're putting a lot of money into those departments in general in the last 3 years. I mean, those budgets have gone up dramatically in the last 3 years.
And we've
Yeah.
we've added hours to the enforcement officer, and I really haven't
Right.
seen any action on some of the properties, especially the 2 properties on Long Hill. I mean, they've gotten worse. And it seems like nothing's been happening, so.
Now, what would the rest of the board's ideas be on this issue then? What steps would you guys like to take to see that this blight problem is resolved? This was just my idea. What's everybody else's ideas?
I mean, I've been candid. I would like to see how this plays out with another person in the department taking some of the other loads off of, we're talking about adding another person and some expertise.
Yeah.
Whether they're directly working on that problem or they're working on other problems and lightening the load, other things. We've also added some more time into the building officials, line this year. So I kind of feel like we're at it. I always have believed that you add incrementally to kind of get to where you need to go. Just like we've done with public works, it's slowly been ramped up over the last 5 years to the point where we're getting close to where we need to be.
Right.
And I think you do that because it's a lot harder to take it back than it is to put it in.
All right.
You know,
Well, you're taking a guy, the plan of conservation development, when we had a meeting with the guy last week, it's gonna take a year of his work, up to 18 months to do just the POCD.
Yep.
That's without him working on anything else. And he's also gonna be working on, affordable housing after that. So
Mhm.
you're gonna get a guy that you pay $125 an hour to go and work on zoning enforcement issues. That it doesn't seem. it
Well,
doesn't
Scott,
seem-
I don't think he's gonna directly address it, but maybe try to guide our enforcement officer to be a little bit more effective or try some new strategies to try to deal with the issue, because obviously what we're doing right now is not working.
Not working.
We need a new approach to dealing with the issue. And maybe he'll have some new ideas that we can act and
Scott,
work to clean up these properties.
Scott, I think what Jeff's trying to say is that it's that water cooler effect. When you have more people interacting on a problem, it isn't always that new person coming in is addressing the problem themselves. It's that they're bringing a different level of experience or expertise to the table. He may have, hey, in our other town, this is what we did, or this is an approach that we can take. And so you end up with, a group effort to come up with a solution. Just like you're asking all of us what the solution is, you're going to have that same type of effect in that office. So that's why I'd like to sort of wait and see how this plays out,
Yeah. Well, maybe throwing hours at that department isn't working because maybe there's some sort of problem in that department.
Don't know. But maybe that'll be something that comes to light as well. We don't know. I wouldn't assume that. I think it's just that as a small town, we don't have the amount of resources that some of these bigger towns, and listen, bigger towns struggle with it too. I mean, look at, if you go up East Street and look at that house that the town of Hebron struggled with for how long? And they're just now finally getting some ground, and they've been in court with that guy for 5 years. So they're not easy these are not easy things.
Yeah, in the case recently, the town of South Windsor had to, they had to acquire a property and demolish it. Substantial cost to the taxpayers, so.
Yep.
I mean, it's every town's got the problem, so.
Well, the only thing that I would sit there and say on the blight issue is that, we did pass an ordinance and we put some teeth into the ordinance. We should be taking advantage of it. And if we have to lien the properties, we should be liening the properties.
Yeah, but Jeff, nothing has been done at all about any of that
No.
since we've enacted that ordinance. not a thing has happened.
And it
Well,
needs to, Scott, I agree. It needs to, something.
What's
needs to
the,
happen.
so what's the answer?
So maybe what we do this year coming up is we sit there and we expect more of the zoning enforcement agent officer as he currently exists. And then if we determine that he's actually doing something to, follow the guidelines that are in that ordinance and he needs more time, then you put it in.
Look,
I
I mean,
wonder right now if it's just, we just don't know what is going on related to that. And so
Right.
maybe it's more,
we shined a big light on Public Works 3 years ago. The last year, we started looking at staffing 2 years ago, overall in the town hall. This past year, we put a lot of effort into the community center and some of the things that the town needed to clean up. Maybe this year that the focus, Scott, needs to be zoning enforcement and zoning.
why don't we, I just want to ask the town attorney, I mean, nothing, just make sure that I'm not off, nothing's happened related to zoning enforcement, has it? In any of the liens, in any of the properties?
I've been working with Jim lately. And he's learning how to, the ropes and how to do these things. The blight ordinance is, to a layperson, probably is a little complicated, but to me, it's not. I wrote it. And I've spent a lot of time with him lately. And when I spend time working with somebody, it doesn't really costing you anything because you're not paying me any more for my hours. And that's okay. I'm not complaining. But he's into it and he's learned. I'm working with him on one property right now, and now he knows what he has to do. The other thing is you do not have, I've left zoning alone because I'm not the zoning attorney, but you should have a zoning ordinance that allows you to fine people for zoning violations, and you don't have one. I've put one in every other town I've been in, but because I don't do zoning, I haven't done one here. And you have zoning issues that if you were going to do anything about it, you'd have to sue in court, and that takes a long time. But I can tell you this, the blight ordinance in Wyndham, they're making lots of money on it. It takes time. Once you get going, though, you're not going to have as many blighted properties in the long run that Wyndham has. But you know what, if you've got as many as you say, and I don't know, I just know what is brought to my attention. Of course, I don't live in the town, but I'm working with him on one of these properties, and there's several notices that have to be done, and we're doing it. And I've been spending some time with him lately, and he's catching on to it. And once I do a few with him, he's going to know exactly what to do. And I think he's up to it. I don't know. I think he's doing all kinds of other stuff too in terms of code enforcement. You have a building official that is supposed to be the housing code enforcement officer, but in fact, that's not happening. So this guy, Jim, is doing housing code enforcement as well. And that's something new too, because the town hasn't been doing that. So and I have a lot of experience in those fields, so I understand it, but it's not simple because it requires all kinds of procedural steps before you can have a property determined blighted and then eventually lien it. You can't just slap a lien on it. When I first worked with Jim, he thought he could just go and and slap a lien on the land records, and it doesn't work that way. But once you get going, once you get a bunch of these things in the pipeline, they pay off because you can lien the property. You're not going to get paid off right away, but if there's a foreclosure, you will, by either the town or somebody else. Now, I promised Jeff I wouldn't spend much time on this, but it's a lot more complicated than anybody thinks. And Jim Hallisey is catching on to it because I've been spending some time with him lately, and spent some time with him lately on a couple of very difficult cases in town hall just this past week. As far as how many hours he needs, I don't know, but I would think that it's worthwhile. If you're really that concerned about blight, it's not going to be done by the town planner. Not a
Okay.
town planner that's working 8 hours a week. No way.
Right,
All right,
No
so,
way.
so,
wrong guy to be putting into that position.
Don't forget, you're not going to get Bill Warner. You're not going to get it's going to be hard to find somebody who's really, really good to work 8 hours a week as a town planner. I know in small towns, it's really hard to get part-time work for professional staff. Not easy. You'll find somebody if you keep looking, but you're not going to get Bill Warner not with all his experience. I
Well,
know.
thanks for cheering us on, Dennis. We feel way better about this now.
Well,
Okay. So,
it's
so,
it's
so-
more complicated than you think, but I think it's a worthwhile thing. If you're that concerned about blight, if you really have 12 blighted properties in town, then let's go for it.
okay, so,
He's gonna need me to help him with the first few. But the way the ordinance is set up, the town attorney doesn't have to be involved once he gets the hang of it.
okay, so we're going to ask Dennis that you sit there and assist Jim Halsey on the first couple cases, because there does appear to be, you know, a half a dozen to a dozen properties that need some TLC and some pressure.
I've
So,
already started.
okay. So Scott, the question is, do we sit there and try to add those hours to this year's budget, or do we push that off and see how everything progresses?
Up to you. You guys already told me no, so.
Well, Paul, and I didn't tell you no. I would sit there.
If Jim is on the correct path now, some extra hours, maybe he wants to work some extra hours now that he knows how to do it from Dennis, and he can get Dennis going. Maybe he'll get inspired and, you know, give him a few extra hours and get this on the road. Maybe we could cut it back after that.
You'll never cut it back. So the question is, does he take the time he's currently doing that he may not be as productive with and become more productive?
Well, if he has Dennis working with him, he'll be more productive.
I'd like to call the motion call the motion, please.
I don't think anyone seconded it. So there is no motion on the floor.
So we had a lot of discussion without a second, basically.
Correct. That's what you guys did. That's what you did. So,
All right.
all right. I would sit there and tell you that, Scott, that I would rather it sit there and see if we can use Dennis as a training tool to sit there and improve the enforcement of the blight ordinance. That would be me. So, and we won't put Paula on the spot because she doesn't need to be put on the spot. Okay, so let's try to move on to next issues. So, Eric, I didn't see anything on a treasurer's report in my package. Am I missing something?
No, you're not. And look, I apologize. I was sick as a dog when all this stuff happened early in the week. So I did not look over any of this material before it got out. So there's a bunch of things that are missing. So definitely not there.
Okay, well, why don't you give us an update on the summary of the audit status at least, so we understand what's up?
Sure. So spoke to Cheryl about a week ago. Her plan was by the end of this week to have everything fully to the auditor. I haven't talked to her about it in a week, but that's my goal in the next day or so. Engage her on two things. One, where we are in the audit. You know, I've been keeping her up abreast of the budget stuff, and then start talking about the plan for training the new assistant, the new finance assistant. So with a little luck, we'll have everything to Mike, hopefully by this weekend. That's my goal anyway. But
Okay. All right. Appointments, we had an appointment on line 6.
yes. So myself and Adrian and a member of the Board of Finance interviewed a series of candidates for the accounting associate position. And the group decision was to offer the job to Christina Hartley. We then asked the treasurer, Cheryl, to interview her also and decide whether she felt she was suitable for the task. And Cheryl also gave her a a positive recommendation. So on that basis, we sent her an offer letter, which she accepted, with the goal of starting her basically a week from today, presuming you all agree with that.
Okay. All right. Somebody want to make a motion to appoint Christina
What's her last name?
Harkley.
Arkle?
Am I
Arkle?
saying that right? I think.
Harkelay, yeah, I
Arkle.
think.
Motion to appoint Christina Harkley to the, what are we actually calling that position at this point? The
Accounting associate.
accounting associate position. Thank you.
I'll second.
All right. Further discussion, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
All right, 5-0. Eric, any resignations?
No resignations.
Okay. A short town administrators report?
Yeah, super short. So the trip grant, we made the first cut. We got selected by CROG as one of the 4 applications from our region, so that was really good. The really good news was that the top 3, we were the 3rd ranked grant application that came out of this the CROG region, but there were only 3 points separating out of 100 separating the top 3. So I think we put together a really good competitive grant for that, so that's a good sign. Still hoping like hell the DOT funds that. Rec trails I asked today, but I
Can I
didn't
ask,
get.
sorry, can I go back one step on that trip grant?
Sure.
Bill Warner said there were only possible 6 small rural towns that can compete for that grant.
8.
Actually, there are 9 in our region. It varies region to region.
So there are 9 and there were only 4 accepted. From our
Yeah,
region.
only 4 got forwarded on. So
Okay.
basically what the DOT does is just like LOTSIP, they use the COG as the initial rater and criteria. And then each COG gets to put forth a certain number of grants from that COG as things they think should be funded.
Okay.
So we were one of those. So hopefully we will end up getting funded on that. Rec Trails grant was submitted last month. It's too early to tell whether we're gonna, how that one's gonna do. Hopefully I'll know in another month or so. As a couple people have alluded to, we've had a couple very complicated rental situations in Andover lately that are ongoing. I sent you the pictures from one particular resident in town. That one, in addition to the blight, that one is also going to involve housing code enforcement, building code enforcement, health code enforcement, and it's a rental situation. So that one right now is proving to be an ongoing annoyance all the way around. That's pretty much all I have, unless you have specific questions. I mean, lately my focus has been the budget more than anything else. So I don't have a lot else to
Are
talk.
people still living in that residence, Eric?
Officially, no. They're living in the trailer behind the residence, but not in the residence.
So, folks, I'm sorry, I have to get off real quick. We are having a meeting on Thursday for the final stuff that goes, that's gonna be with the community center. So hopefully after that, we should have the contractor, hopefully can come back to us within a week or 2 with the contracts to sign. So, but I'm sorry, I gotta hop off.
Okay. Let's move on to old business, and let's sit there and see if we can go through this. We already did the grant for the community gardens. Adrian just gave us the status on the community center RFP. To any of the other members, Jeff or Scott, have anything to add?
Nope.
Nope. Okay. Hop River Homes update.
So I sent you a while back. Their board met, they were mostly in agreement with the contract we sent them. They had a series of questions for me related to, we had also proposed putting a trench across the road so we could put in water and electricity. And they immediately became concerned that we were going to put up lights and a bunch of other things. I assured them that was not our intention. She said she would bring that back to the board, but my suggestion is we just take that out of the contract for now, because everything else in that contract they would agree to. And just me sign the contract with that out, send it back to them and see whether we can get a signature so we get going. But that's a modification of what you had agreed on before, so you would have to be okay with that.
I think you're going to need water there. How long is this contract for?
They didn't have a problem with water there. They had a problem with running electricity over there also.
How are you going to get water if you don't have electricity?
We're gonna
Pumping.
trench over and connect it to our existing irrigation system.
Okay.
Gravity.
Too expensive to do a new well. So we're just simply talking about trenching across the road and putting a head on the other side.
Okay, then take the electricity out for right now.
Are you okay with that and then me signing the contract and getting it right back to them?
Anybody else on here have a problem with it?
It's a 3-year contract, you asked.
Okay, 3 years.
There's nothing saying we can't put a conduit in the ground and just bury it underneath and for future use. If we're gonna trench, you might as well put it under there.
I don't disagree with you. That makes perfect sense to me. Run the
Yeah, we just don't
electric-
put electricity in, but in the future, in 3 years from now, if we decide to put electricity in, we do it. We have the infrastructure. So,
Okay, take it out.
Take the electricity out of the contract, but actually
Okay.
put the conduit in.
Okay.
Okay, recognizing Andover residents. Paula, do you want to talk about that or do you want to delay that till our next meeting?
We can talk about that next meeting. I need a little more time on that anyway.
Okay, the cool program contract.
Did we hear back did you get anything from Kerma today? on
I
that?
did not. I followed up with an email and a phone call, but I have not gotten a response from them. They have the latest contract that got sent to us. I know Dennis had some concerns with that, but I have not gotten a review of that from Kerma yet.
Well, if you want to hear from me, my main concern about it was they took out the section that allows us or them to opt out of the contract, and if we violate it or if they violate it, and that's standard lane. That's standard stuff that goes in every contract. So I would think we want to put that in. I mean, I know they think that they're going to do everything perfectly, but and maybe they will. But as a lawyer, I can't,
Endorse that.
no, I can't endorse that. I mean, there's a way out of any contract if the other side doesn't comply, and it should be in writing. The other thing was, I guess, yeah, with the insurance, our insurer has already said to us that they didn't recommend us allowing them to use our insurance as a secondary insurer if they didn't have more than $1 million of general coverage. And I guess this latest version calls for $2 million of general coverage. And as long as they're doing that, the insurer may approve. But as Paula just said, that we need to get the approval from our insurer, I believe. I think that would be a good idea. So we're almost there, but not quite. Eric?
Yep.
Okay.
Did you write that all down?
So Eric and I will work on that.
I mean, it really comes back to you as a board and what you're comfortable with. I'm not trying to tell you what you should, we've batted around probably 6 or 7 versions of this contract.
At least.
Are we ever going to get a version that everybody's happy with? I don't know. At some point.
Well, this standard language in a contract should be in there.
Get a version that our insurance company can agree with and our town attorney can agree with, and then we'll vote yes. Let's go.
Yeah.
So
we
who's
did
saying 2
explicitly-
million, by the way, for liability? Is it
Um,
your insurance
I think
carrier?
I think they said they've got that much coverage now, Jeff.
Okay, because usually like for our events in town, for running events and stuff, we always require like $1 million in the past, so. That's why I was just wondering why
Well,
that
that's-
$2 million number that 2 million came up.
Our insurer already said in comments to a previous draft, Jeff, that $1 million wasn't enough.
Okay,
And, I don't know, I really don't, I have no strong feelings about that anyway, but I know this, some kind of huge disaster, I guess, could happen.
okay. Do we need to probably revisit anybody that wants to do any permits or anything on site? Because I think usually before we required $1 million. So we may want to revisit anybody else that wants to permit an event.
Okay.
I think depends on the scope of the event. This is a big project, a summer day camp and
Yeah.
before. and
We've
after.
we've allowed running races with $1 million coverage, so that's why I'm just wondering.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah, and one other thing relative to the Cool contract is I think part of the reason that Cool as an organization didn't feel it was appropriate for the town to have an opt-out was because they felt the school had the opt-out anyway. So having the town and the school both the ability to kick them out, they weren't too excited about.
You know what? You're right. You're right. And that issue comes up all the time whenever I hate to bring this up, whenever we deal with the Board of Education and the understanding where the lines are drawn. You're right. So they see themselves as dealing with the Board of Education. So why deal with us? I don't think we've had a contract before, and they've been operating for quite a while.
That is correct.
That is correct. Once again,
I think next month, let's wait to hear back from Kerma. See what their feedback is. And then we can talk a little more about these other things too.
Okay. Finance Department employment, 9F, we've discussed. 9G and over personal policy discussion. Do we want to do it at this meeting? No. Okay, good. 9H, a discussion of senior transportation, electric vehicle research, and a review of a 15-passenger bus acquisition and usage.
I think we can skip that also. You've already made a decision to fund the senior transportation vehicle in the next budget, so that should be wiped.
Okay. New business discussion, there's nothing to it. We have no new business. We're dealing with budgets. Okay, fine. Approval of minute meetings for Monday, February 14th, Thursday, February 23rd, and Monday, February 27th.
I make a motion to accept the meeting minutes for March 13th, 2023, the regular meeting and budget workshop. Monday, February 14th, 2023, regular meeting minutes. Thursday, February 23, 2023, budget workshop minutes. Monday, February 27th, 2023, budget workshop minutes.
I'll
I'd just like to amend, Paul. I think, Paul, you included the 313, didn't you? That's the footer for the,
Oh, I did.
so we
late.
just need to include A, B, and C. That's all. Just amend to include February 14th, February 23rd, and February 27th.
Good catch. Good catch. Yes.
It's late.
All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
right. Eric, on item 12, budget appropriation transfers over expenditure requests, and do we have anything?
There are none on that.
The tax collectors report refund requests, I did not see any in the package.
Before we go to that, are you at this point, is the board at this point ready to pass the meeting along to or pass the budget along to the Board of Finance? Or what do you still want to see if that's not the case?
Have we, so let's just take 20 seconds. Did we cover everything that we mentioned last time, Eric?
Yes, we did.
List? Okay,
So all your green highlights are the items that we had to discuss at this meeting.
Correct, the green and yellow highlights. So the only yellow highlight was the
On the
road
town
improvement
plan.
fund. So I made all the corrections on the fly. And presuming that's all right, that yields us a final total expenditures of 12,512,765.52. Which results in a mill rate decrease from 31.91 last year to 31.65 this year. Why don't I just show my screen instead of telling you this verbally? Sorry. Okay. Are you seeing the screen now?
yeah,
Yes,
you just gotta increase it a lot. Unless my eyes are bad. There you go.
Hard to get the whole thing on one side. Let me drop it down a little bit.
it's fine. Just, could you increase your? No, maybe not. It's just go up. So you got.
So total expenditures are decreasing compared to last year, but so is estimated revenue. Now, this estimated revenue includes the governor's budget, so which decreases ECS funding, as well as loss of revenue projected in the building department and loss of revenue in the town clerk's office, just because there's a lot less home sales, and home sales are a big driver of profits, not profits, but money taken in by the town clerk's office.
So we're actually down on a budgetary basis, but down more on an estimated revenue standpoint.
Correct. Correct. Now, I mean, depending on what the legislature does, you know, that could change a lot. If you take the town's contribution to that, you know, there's probably about $50,000 less in revenue, and the rest is state funding. So if we ended up with level funding from the state, then that could, you know, we could be in a much better position revenue wise, but we just don't know at this point.
Okay. Right. So look, I'll make a motion that we accept the 2023-2024 proposed budget as currently presented.
I'll second.
Any discussion on the budget in total or pieces, or what would you guys like to do? All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
4-0.
Five, nothing.
Adrian is not here.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
Yep.
Good catch. Okay.
Okay, so the tax collector's report, that was actually in our package. It was a collection month this month. $1.8 million in collections or somewhere in that ballpark. What I remember looking at. 1.816438.31. Now we basically have that much left to collect, I believe, a little bit more than that. $700,000 left over from other periods. All right. Any questions on the tax collector's report? Any questions on any of the department reports? Any correspondence, Eric?
There was no really significant correspondence, not that I know of.
Okay. Is there ever any correspondence, Eric?
I get a lot of correspondence, but most of it goes straight into the circular file. Don't waste your time with it.
No, you.
Hey, I kind of have one further question before we end this section.
Sure.
And that is the one thing we haven't discussed directly with the budget. You've approved the budget, but what hasn't happened is you haven't authorized me as your representative to agree to the AHM budget. And I've given all that information to you, and you asked me the last time to give you some more time to review it. Are you at a position right now that you're willing to allow me to vote for the AHM budget at this point?
Is it currently in our budget?
It is currently in your budget.
Then I make a motion that we authorize Eric to be our representative to vote for or approve the AHM budget.
I'll second that.
Further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we have no correspondence. We have no public, so there will be no public speak. So now we can adjourn. Who's going to make that motion? Paul.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, Jeff Murray snuck that one in.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you, Dennis.